Okay, I'd like to officially open the meeting. It is now 6 o'clock on the button. Wednesday, February 21st, the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, that is unanimous. I'd also like a motion to approve the meeting minutes as written of February 7th, 2024.
Motion. Second.
Unanimous. Okay, I just had one comment, which I'll make later. It's not correcting them, but something we have to address. So what I'd like to defer from the original agenda. Selectman Simons has a meeting at 6:30 he has to go to, so I said 6 o'clock on the button. So wherever you're comfortable to sit.
Thank you.
So,
appreciate it.
And basically the format is we give you an opportunity to speak first, or if you'd rather have this committee ask questions, it's your preference.
I have at it. I'm here for you,
Okay.
sir.
I open the floor to,
So there were three questions. What works? What doesn't? How do we improve it in your opinion?
Yes. Let's see, let me just orient myself a little bit. So there's a few minor notes I made in here, just opportunities to clarify things actually in the act. I can tell you from my experience, not so much sort of the formal letter of the law. I think the town manager model makes sense in a town this size. I don't think there's any question about whether or not we have the right model. I think that the way the board's authority is structured versus the town managers, at least in terms of how we operate, works for me. It's been 6 years. I haven't run into any obstacles, barriers, power struggles. It sounds like predating me, there was some sense of the town manager and the board not having a sort of clear relationship in terms of the way I look at it, right? It's like any organization or corporation or structure, right? Like we're the executive branch of local government. And I think of the town manager as the CEO, right? Like they're the operator. He runs the business. We hire and fire the CEO. We're ultimately responsible and accountable for the success of the operation, but it's his to operate. So I tend to think of the town manager in that capacity. And I have a lot of deference for, career municipal officials, whether it's the fire chief or the police chief, the DPW director, town managers, town planners, like this is their career. This is what they do. So I'm always mindful of that and mindful of my role and place in the process. So I don't think of myself as a local government operations expert, right? That's the town manager's job. And I think that the Town Manager Act supports that. And I think of my job as a select board member to be in touch with the community, to understand what the needs and wants of the community are, to understand any particular issues that may be going on, to consult, to advise, to empower and support the people whose career it is to help run and operate the town. And so in that capacity and with that philosophy and mindset, I don't see anything in the act that inhibits my ability to operate successfully in that model.
Do you feel that there's a need for the town manager to have more delineated authority than the current act provides?
In what regard?
Perhaps somehow having authority over employees that are hired by other elected boards.
I think it would make I think it would make a lot of sense for any employee of a board, appointed or elected, that gets paid by the town to be under the supervision of someone whose job it is and whose expertise lies in managing local government and municipal affairs. The specific example I would say is the Board of Health. You have a board comprised of citizens, which is by design. You have some full-time staff that support that board in my opinion, it would make the most sense for employees of the town to fall under the jurisdiction of the town manager in terms of coaching, development, goal setting, and day-to-day management. Boards that are elected, like the Board of Health, like they're not in town hall every day. They don't, it's not what I do. Like I don't manage people in town hall, right? So that I think would make more sense. In as much as it's the Town Manager Act that would dictate that control. I don't know if that's something that needs to be reorganized or handled outside of the act itself, but I do think that that would make sense.
See,
First perspective.
you feel that way even though the citizens elected those individuals separately from the selectmen and any other boards to run that department. You feel that way regardless of the citizens speaking out by electing those officials.
I mean, I think that the citizens should determine what they think the reporting authority of that elected board should be. I don't think it's my place to say that elected committees' staff should fall under the jurisdiction of the town manager. What I'm saying is that I think personally, not speaking for the board, that makes more sense from an operating model perspective. If I was running this $27 million a year business, I wouldn't want an outside group managing people that are on my payroll. But that's not my decision to make. I think we should ask town meeting what people think. I don't see how it would limit in any way the Board of Health's authority by having those roles fall under the town manager. I don't think that would be an impediment to the Board of Health operating effectively at all. I just think it would alleviate some of the administrative overhead that they currently have that isn't adding value to the town or to their management. But that's not up to me. We should ask the taxpayers and the people that elect these boards. I'm very reticent to take any action unilaterally as a board, as a town, as an individual that takes power and authority and choice and decision away from the voters. All of this needs to sit with voters.
Excuse me, do you have a question?
Yeah, so what about disciplining and firing employees that are hired by Board of Health, library trustees, elected boards? So when you say it's your personal opinion that the town manager should have responsibility for these, does that include everything like disciplining and firing or just day-to-day management? Performance reviews, another.
Yeah. For me, I think that my bias is toward allowing a professional to do that, because anybody can get elected to the Board of Health. You have to have no experience in training, coaching, leading, goal setting, strategic planning. There are no prerequisites to be on the Board of Health other than a bunch of people saying you should be on the Board of Health. So I think it's potentially at worst a disservice to the employees of the Board of Health to be managed, maintained, hired, fired, and disciplined by people who don't necessarily have any experience, capacity, or insight to do that effectively. I don't know that it's fair to those employees. At best, assuming you have people that are on the Board of Health that can effectively do all of those things and have experience doing all of those things, I would think that they could effectively partner with the town manager to say, hey, we need to hire, fire, discipline, coach, train, set goals for this person in collaboration with you as their manager. I don't think that's a model that.
Well, if I'm not wrong, I had one past dear friend, one current dear friend. Rick Benacco was an elected member, and a guy used to live next to me, Al Holman, was a member.
Yeah.
And they both took classes that were provided by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
In order to learn their responsibilities and duties, which, by the way, anybody can be elected to the Board of Selectmen.
Totally.
So, and every member doesn't necessarily bring anything of quality to the Board of Selectmen. But there isn't, unfortunately, a class given by the Commonwealth. If there is a proper Board of Select person, how that person is. So I guess I feel a little bit different. I think the Board of Health is actually one of those elected positions that the Commonwealth actually provides classes for education.
I don't think we disagree on any of that.
Did you have another question?
Um, The act currently sets the approval limit on purchase orders at $25,000. Is that the right number? Should it be higher or lower or?
I don't think it's not any kind of obstacle to Joe and operating the town to have, right? It's an arbitrary number. If we made it 50,000, what would that do? It would mean that the few times a year when something like that comes up, that he would be able to have the authority to approve it. It's so infrequent that I don't think that's
Okay.
that's not a issue from my perspective. Nor is it, I talked to Joe about it and asked him because I knew you were going to ask me that. And my main thing was, if it's an operational impediment to you sort of running the business, then let's talk about it. And he's like, would I like it to be more like any of us that had access to manage an account? Yeah, sure. If the limit's higher, it makes my job a little bit easier and a bit faster in certain limited cases. Is it an obstacle? No, sometimes it'll slow him down by a week or two because he's got to wait for the board, but.
If this committee recommends that the town manager should have oversight for all employees, not just ones that are appointed.
Yeah.
And if that language is then inserted into this act,
Yeah.
it goes before the voters
Yeah.
at town meeting. Is that sufficient to get voter approval, or would you think we would have to do that individually for every board? So we'd have to have an article on the warrant, okay, so for the Board of Health, we're going to make this change. For the library trustees, we're going to make this change. So what in your opinion would be the appropriate mechanism for getting voter approval if the decision is to make a change like this?
Yeah. I mean, I think whatever would allow the voters to have the most clarity before they make the decision, right? Because I think logically, you wouldn't make a distinction, right? If you were going to say, hey, these employees should fall under the jurisdiction of the town manager, then whether it's the library trustees or the Board of Health, it's sort of like you come up with an idea. If it makes sense for one, it makes sense for both. So should you present that as two different votes to town meeting? I don't think it would hurt. It certainly would be illogical for them to vote differently on those two things, but I don't know. I'm not everybody, so maybe somebody would, and we should give them that opportunity, because what we've found is that if the more you bundle things together, the more confusing it gets, and the harder it is for, someone may have some issue with, for your example, for the Board of Health, right? Like, hey, we've got really great stuff going on here, but I don't think so as much with the library trustees. So I would support it here, but not here, but you got them together. So like, that gets very complicated. It's very easy to say, do you think it's right here? Yes. Do you think it's right here? Yes. Great. Done.
Because I wouldn't think that most residents understand the difference between employees that are hired by elected boards and those that are hired by the town manager.
Yeah, and that's why education is key, right? Because it's that balance of like, we are all here to serve the community, period. The people that vote for us, the people that live in this town, the people that pay taxes. So on the one hand, you've got a mindset of people, which is the vast majority of people, like, it runs, it works, I pay my bills, fine. But to your point, you've got some people that are engaged, but don't quite understand because they don't have all the information, because they don't sit in this building like we do. And so the degree to which we can explain those things and give them that clarity, and I think that's really important. Like, if we're going to ask voters to vote on something, we should provide them the clarity and provide them the opportunity to make an informed decision as discreetly as possible, meaning on as specific a topic as possible to minimize confusion and conflating different issues that may or may not be relevant.
And
Thank you.
think before we did any of that, we should have the Board of Health in, we should have the library trustees in and get their opinion on it.
Sure.
Totally.
Because if you go to town meeting, the last thing you want is the Board of Health stand up and say, we don't agree with this.
Well,
100%.
Most
the
everybody.
point is lack of communication creates chaos.
Yeah.
If I understand what you're suggesting, that the elected boards have an audience before us before, that's very funny, ironic, because that's actually what I was going to bring up. I think it'd be extremely wrong in this committee to give them an audience at the town meeting as opposed to giving them an audience here.
You have to talk to them before we post it. Yeah,
I'm glad that you agree. That was my position, but I'm glad to hear you say that.
For the record, the town manager has disseminated our questions and our information and options to all town employees, department heads, anybody within the town structure is welcome to come before us, and that's been disseminated. So I don't know if it's out there yet, but I know it's on its way.
yeah,
And that will mean supervisors, managers, employees.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not closing the door to anyone, so
yeah.
and that would include elected officials.
We might want to send it directly to them and say, hey, this is what we're discussing and
Mhm. Yeah.
potentially we'd like to have you here to have a
Mhm.
discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, right, because they know, like, I'm not on the Board of Health. I don't know all the dynamics of the day-to-day and the ins and outs and how they interact. Like, I can't, I don't, so I don't know what I don't know. Should definitely ask them. It's right, because what's the risk if you change how the reporting is structured? What's the risk for the Board of Health? I don't know, but they might have an opinion about that. Say, hey, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. It doesn't matter who reports to who, like, it doesn't affect our authority or our ability to do anything. We didn't get on the Board of Health to hire and fire a nurse. We got on the Board of Health to serve the town, to make decisions, provide strategic guidance and decision-making and perspective. Or they might say, oh man, that makes no sense at all. The Board of Health is an independent entity. We're elected. We need to operate independently. We need to maintain this sort of dividing line for whatever reason. I don't know.
Well, that would come up in the discussion, but for the record, to clarify, we're not talking about just the Board of Health. We're talking about all elected, so you
Yes,
keep saying Board of Health. I don't want,
that's the one that.
yeah, I know.
So it's library trustees, Board of Health. Who are the other, what are the other ones?
Recreation. Commission.
Recreation, yeah.
Well, there used to be a treasurer. There's no longer a treasurer right now. It's
No,
town
Board of
financial.
Assessors and Treasurer don't apply. They've been,
Yeah,
that's been
There
modified.
used to be a clerk, but there isn't a clerk anymore.
In the effort to save you time, there had been a comment here relative to communication with the town manager. Do you see anything in the act that could be adjusted to either improve communication between the board and the town manager? Or do you think it's sufficient? The opportunities are there? I'd just like your input on that.
my experience is that if there's ever any information or access that I want to the town manager or the details of what's going on with hiring, firing, job postings, recruiting, you just have to ask. There is there are processes laid out that are laid out in here in terms of the hiring authority, the process, the notification of the board, the option to approve or disapprove of a recommended hire from the town manager. All of those policies have been followed, adhered to, and are working from my perspective. I don't see, and I wasn't going to necessarily get into it, but from my perspective, some of what you've heard isn't necessarily accurate based on my experience and sort of the timelines that I've seen in the communication that I've gotten from the town manager. I know this isn't a review of the town manager, so it's not necessarily relevant, but I think those of you that know me know that I would communicate and articulate if I thought something wasn't being followed or adhered to.
Okay.
Cemetery commissioners, aren't they elected also?
Cemetery.
And then about the school committee reps and the regional school.
Well, the
I
recent.
didn't say they don't have, but
Yeah, they don't have any employees within the
well,
town.
the
structure.
commissioners, though, I think
Yeah.
the cemetery
Yeah,
commissioners do.
right. So there are others. That's why I clarified.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
we'll get to those. Did you have any more questions? Because I'm looking at his timeline. I'm the guy that facilitates here.
I appreciate that.
You said in your 6 years, you've never had an issue with something going on. that the town manager may have, that you would wish, that you said you never had an issue. It's hard to believe that you'd have an issue, but the town manager may have done something and you would have liked more control. No.
That I would have liked more control. So I think that's the key, right? Like, I haven't seen the town manager act not operating in a way that supports my view. Are there specific things individual town managers have done that I've disagreed with, didn't like, coached them on, gave them feedback on, shared development opportunities with them, shared communication opportunities with them, talked to them about personal style, leadership style, management style, both with how they interact with me and how they interact with the community? Absolutely, those things have happened. But when they've happened, they've been a function of sort of a manager-employee type of dialogue and discourse and sort of how we're operating and working together as a team. Never once have I had an issue where a town manager has said, oh, you're giving me that feedback, but I'm going to discount your feedback because I've got this act that supports my position. That's never happened. So the act itself has never been at the root of any disagreement or issues or challenges I've had with town managers. There have been several of those, just to be clear.
Do we have any other questions? Do you have any comments you want to make?
I just appreciate the
Short and quick.
time, effort, and energy.
Short and
Yeah,
quick. That's grammatically incorrect.
I'm always available. I'm happy to come back. I'm sorry that I had to.
No, that's understood.
Tonight, just want to try to get over to the 40B.
Okay, we appreciate it.
Community center, big one there, so.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Appreciate
Anything
it.
else?
Thank you.
No, okay.
Appreciate it.
So next on our agenda is to review section 4 of the Town Manager Act and any comments. I'd open it up before I start because I actually typed up a,
Just so you refresh your memory, this is the list of elected boards that I copied out of the last town report.
can you read them off? Because I
So,
can't read
okay,
it.
so it's the Board of Assessors, Board of Health, the Selectmen, Cemetery Commission, Commissioner of Trust Funds, Town Constables, Finance Committee, Capital Budget Committee, School District, Moderator, Planning Board, Library Trustees, Recreation Commission, and the Housing Authority. So now of those,
Three.
several don't have any
So there's only 3.
employees. So Board of Assessors does, Board of Health does.
Board of Assessors is now under the Town Manager. That act,
It is, right.
that was amended to the
Right.
act. Yeah.
I don't believe the Cemetery Commission does. I think all of the work at the
Yeah.
town cemeteries is done by the DPW.
Correct.
The Commissioner of Trust Funds,
No.
you're on that, so. you
No.
can-
So I just want to be clear. So are you saying if they don't have an employee reporting to them or underneath them, there's no reason to get their opinion? 'Cause-
No, I'm just saying, I just wanted to identify those that do have employees, so we,
Specific full-time.
so we
Well,
focus
part-time, I
on.
don't think it matters.
Yeah.
I mean, again, really, whether you're part-time, whether you're full-time, the committee seemed to be moving in the direction that, elected boards should not be the ones who are responsible for the employees that report to them. And that's obviously, everybody realizes that's something that I am not in favor
Yeah.
of. So,
But these are all of the elected boards. Some of them have employees, some don't.
so I'd ask that everybody, because honestly, they may, a week from now, may want to go out and hire somebody
Yeah.
part-time or full-time.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So I think it's more that an elected board, you're looking to take away what historically has been their authority or their realm of responsibility. So I think if they want to show up, great. If they don't, then that reflects on what their feelings
Yeah.
are.
I have to clarify one comment. The hiring process still requires going through the personnel bylaws. So it's not like they go out and hire on their own. The process is identical, hiring whether another elected board or the Board of Selectmen or anybody, they're obligated to comply with the personnel bylaws. So that hiring process is the same. It doesn't,
Except who makes the decision.
that they, along with others, make the decision based upon the personnel bylaw.
Right.
They
but-
can't go out and just say, we want you. They have to go through it.
Again, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to give the proper respect in my eyes to every
You've
elected. board.
reiterated that multiple times. I understand. I'm just saying,
Okay,
they don't go out and just hire. He's got it there. It's.
Yeah, I read through it, I gotta read through it again, because I'm just
Yeah.
not, when it says, the town manager is the town manager, the appointing authority and department head, the personnel board shall be responsible for recruitment and selection of all personnel.
Yeah.
Now, how does this match up with what the Board of Health does now? Do they go?
They have to go through that process with the personnel board. Yes, that's my whole point. They cannot hire without going through the bylaw. That's a bylaw now, so they have to comply.
I just don't, and it partially agree with Alan a little bit, I don't want to take a board that's doing a good job and doing everything, and, and we need to decide exactly what they're doing.
Again, I have to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
It's not whether they're doing a good job, bad job. Is it the best way to facilitate? Because you're gonna have boards that come and go and change, personnel are gonna change, situations are gonna change. It's what is the issue? And that's what, and so we will have the opportunity to talk to these people if they so wish to come in and address it. And, if it chooses that it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that all town employees, in my opinion, should be held accountable in the same way, not some for some and different for others.
Yeah, I don't know how they're doing their personnel, I don't know how they do their daily work assignment or their evaluations. I don't know. The one thing is that all employees get treated the same way to a certain extent.
Yeah, some of those don't have evaluations at all.
Yeah. Well, I think
So, yeah.
Yeah, those are the things, and
Yeah.
you may have to have they may have to do that in the personnel bylaws.
Oh, so, okay, that, well, going through this, I'll open it up again. Is there anything relative to section 4 specifically?
So there's one clause in section 4G,
Yeah,
that talks about the town
well,
manager.
we was on go there, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah, all right.
is the town manager is the chief procurement officer for the town. Except for elected boards, which can go out and purchase things on their own. And the way, from what the question I asked last week, was how does an elected board, how does the bill get paid when something is purchased by an elected? And the explanation I got was the elected board has to sign an invoice, which results in that going on the warrant that the select board then has to approve. And the town accountant has to make sure
Correct,
the expense is both legal and in the budget.
correct.
So the question I'm asking is, that process seems to be different for elected boards than others.
It shouldn't be.
And the question, well, so in the case of an elected board, they sign the invoice. In the case of others, the town manager signs the
Correct.
invoice.
But they all go through the same
They go through the
accounting
same,
process.
go through the same, they're both vetted the same way.
Yes,
It's just who is signing the invoice is different.
correct.
And if in fact the town manager is supposed to be acting as the chief procurement officer, it seems that it's only the case for boards that are appointed, not elected.
Well, again, that goes back to the sovereignty of the elected board, having the
Right.
ability to buy and purchase what they want and sign for. They still have to be within their budget. And in my opinion and what I've seen, most of those purchases are insignificant within the budget. Anything of any magnitude goes before town meeting. So if they're going to buy, I'll make it up, a bookcase for the office, that's their authorization, they do it. But we're not talking anything, sizable amounts of dollars, because at that point, the town accountant goes, whoa, so you people bought a brand new stereo system for your office? Hello? That's when the brakes get put on. And so there is a caveat.
Yeah.
So what happens is you have a budget, and I used to have a budget, and you would buy something, let's say the fire department bought
Yeah.
5 jackets. The invoice would come in, you'd sign it, put it in, it would go to the treasurer collector then, and they would do it. Anything over 5,000, I don't know what 30B is now, it used to be anything over 5,000.
It's 15, I think.
15.
gone up significantly.
And you still may have to have 3 quotes. You have to have, between 5 and 10, you'd have to have 3 telephone calls that were on the bid. And then to 15, you'd have to have 3 written quotes. And after that, it's gotta go,
Right.
gotta go to the,
And the accountant's real role is to say, okay, their budget carries this amount of money. Are they authorized within the budget they have? Can they make this purchase? That's the real, it's not up or down on, I don't like this item. It's a financial process. Yeah. Yep. You said it exactly
it's
right.
pretty covered pretty well. And I
Yeah.
suspect the other boards are doing, I know the police department does the same thing.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
They don't have to get approval once their budget, but they can.
Right.
Yes, but they have to stay within the parameters of, yeah.
So that's the only comment I found in section 4 that I thought was, you know, if we decide to change the responsibility of the town manager to include other employees who are appointed or hired by elected boards, it would make sense to change this section as well.
Correct. Yeah.
If we decide not to do that, then leave it the way it is.
Okay. Dick, do you have anything?
No, I just,
Okay,
my personal feeling is I think we should stay at 25. I don't see one
Well-
person signing it. I don't think as Brett just said, there's not that many issues that
Mike,
get there and it doesn't slow things down. you
the
know?
only thing I'd throw out there is this is gonna be for another 5 years before it's reviewed. In 5 years, what's 25,000 gonna mean? You know, so if the town gets a vehicle, that means that the town manager cannot effectively bring that vehicle in until the board of selectmen sign it. Every action, if there's a contract for salt, it's gotta wait, everything. It's just bureaucratic in my opinion.
Contract would be over 25.
Yes, yeah, certainly, yes. I have a issue with number C, which I figured it's easier to type it out than to try and explain it. But to me, the language was lack clarity. And when you read it, it seems to contradict itself. Ensure that the meetings of the board are properly posted in accordance with local, state, and federal. The manager shall aforesaid meetings, oh, wait a minute, where am I? Oh, I'm on the wrong one. Oh, I'm on E. I had C, I'm sorry. Work in conjunction with the chair of the board and town council regarding any litigation or other matters in which town has an interest, act as a liaison. It goes on and on and on, and it doesn't seem clear enough. I think the way I've worded it, with the select chair, which we agreed, and town council regarding any litigation or legal matters in which the town has an interest and shall act as liaison between town council and the select board, as well as any affected town departments or officials. That separates it from the elected boards that have their own legal issues. Because if you read the language here, it looks like it overrides. It says, town council and the board, any affected town departments and officials. Well, that's not clear enough. Any town department and officials is too vague. So I specifically said, other than or elected boards or matters before the town. And the reason the town manager should not be involved with the elected boards and legal matters, Chapter 94 of the Selectmen Act clearly states that the selectmen have the sole authority for approving any legal process. So make it up, so let's say Board of Library Trustees for nothing have a legal dispute, they still have to go before the Board of Selectmen to get authorization to go to town council. It's in the bylaws of the general bylaws of the town under the Selectmen Act.
We're in section 4, right?
Yeah,
It's
Yep.
section 4E.
E.
Oh, E.
I said C. I'm sorry, I corrected myself. I probably typed it at night. I don't know. But
My attorney.
So-
yeah,
So
No,
I
I-
want to comment on one thing. You identify gender. You don't do that anymore.
okay,
So it should be called they,
okay,
uh,
all right.
so.
Yeah.
there's two
Yeah,
aspects.
I did
I
that.
understand, but also there,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
could be offensive to
I
some
get it.
people.
Okay, yep. That's why it's here to discuss. And again, elected boards, it clearly states the town manager does not have any control over elected boards for legal matters. And I wanted that to be clear.
Well, so I guess I have a question. Each board is the select person for the chair I'm not quite sure why that would be the head person to speak with town council. Although you then go on to identify and the select board. So again, I just think back when I was a selectman, and if I wasn't the chair, I still had access.
True, this is the way the act is written in front of you, or this act. The existing act clearly states between town council and the board effective is approved, and those of the chair of the board for use of town council. It clearly states chair of the board in the act. So I'm bringing this up for this purpose, to have dialogue on it. So the way it's structured right now, according to the act, the town manager and the chair of board deal with legal matters with council. Now, again, in all my years, I never had an issue with just the chair of the board and town council. It was always the total board. So do we strike that, say the board instead of chair of the?
I would rather that, because honestly, the chair isn't always a powerful or insightful individual.
Were you
respectfully.
chair once?
I was a couple of times, yeah. You're funny.
Okay. So you strike, instead of chair, it's just general board of select.
Chair, select board.
Then those by the chair are elected boards on matters of the town. And again, elected boards have their own process, so this act shouldn't have been, the language looked like that included them, and it doesn't. Or gave the town manager authority over them. So, again, just rewrote it, tried to make it clear.
So Bob, if you're in a litigation, the town manager doesn't want to provide, like we've seen, doesn't want to provide the information that you might have, or doesn't give you the proper information.
Well, if you're talking about a specific issue, that's a violation of the act.
Right.
That's gonna happen no matter what the act says. If they want to break it, they break it. We had that, and that person's not here anymore because of that.
I know that, but how was that handled?
That's why the board of selectmen need to be involved to step in. That authority doesn't lie with the town manager's board of select. It's a negligent board of selectmen if they don't take action and they allow it to happen. And I don't want to get into specifics,
No.
but there are instances where a town manager did take authority and the board consulted and stepped in and said no. And the board overtook the authority from the town manager as the executive office and made the decision, overruled the town manager's actions and basically, had counsel there at the time.
You know what I'd like to have? I'd like to have a copy of the contract that the current town manager signs with the Board of Selectmen, granting him or her their authority. I think that would help me to understand better what you're saying right now.
That's not in their contract. The contract doesn't specify everything within the act. It only says the act. The only thing in the contract is if there's mileage, vacation days, salary.
No, I'm talking about giving the town manager, it sounded like you were saying it, and there's been an instance in town where the town manager assumed responsibility for some type of litigation matter, and the selectmen weren't consulted, or that town, I'm not aware of that.
But that's got nothing to do with the contractual hiring. That's no different than if a town manager procurement officer and he never signs any of the purchases.
So I guess I'm slow. I don't understand then why you two are talking about.
He was talking about a specific issue and how is it dealt with?
Just generally, I was looking at, does the board of selectmen have power, and where is it that they can step in on a situation like that?
It says the board of selectmen but again, who works for who? And the board of selectmen, the town manager clearly states reports to the board of selectmen.
Okay.
And the board of selectmen, in 2 instances I was involved in, overruled the town manager and said no, and took the authority away. And town council was sitting there at the time and made it very clear.
So again, that's why the contract that the town manager signs with the town would be important to me, because I'd want to see if
You can see it, Alan, but it's got nothing to do with the act.
you guys are talking about it. It sounds like it does.
No,
I just raised it to find out where the power of the selectmen were, because that's one thing I think we should be reviewing to see if the selectmen with this act, because it's pretty strict about
Well-
managing.
I was, like any given board, there are strong boards and there are weak boards. And there are boards that don't use their authority effectively. There are boards that don't do their job effective. And I'll put it on the table. My 30 years, I had selectmen I adored working with, and I had others were drudgery. And I had one, I mean, it was, the actions were impossible. You couldn't predict what was going to happen. But the law is the law, and you can't say, well, we're going to change it for this person, that person. It has to be generic. But this selectman had definitely the executive authority, and council was sitting there when I made the statement, and council said, you're correct, you do have that authority. I said, thank you, and basically asked the person to sit over there. It was that blunt, so. And I know where you're going. I'm trying to explain it out.
No, you don't.
Okay, all right. So anyway, the other thing I have a bit of a disagreements on the 25,000, but I'm not gonna fight it. I just think that in 5 years, 50,000 is gonna be at the rate of inflation and everything else. I mean, when you're talking about it, in 5 years, the town's budget's gonna be well over 30 million. And you're talking about maybe a purchase of a vehicle. Yeah, it goes before the Board of Selectmen, but I caught his word. Yeah, it may be held up a week or two till the select board meets. Sometimes that week or two could be, do you have a vehicle you can't put in the road because you gotta wait 2 weeks or something like that?
I,
I'm going to show my ignorance. Why doesn't the Board of Selectmen meet every week?
You
Which
can
is
ask
the
them
way
that.
It used to be.
You can ask them that. I don't know.
I guess there isn't enough business in town for them.
When the town manager act was written, the whole premise of it was the town manager would help with the functions, daily functions of the town. So the Board of Selectmen can set policy, create innovation, have foresight. In other words, instead of being tied up in the minutia of all the activities, they have the opportunity to have opportunities to look out and say, what do we need? What can we do to improve the town? Hey, you know what? There's a town in Woburn, Mass did this. We should be doing that. That's what the whole intent of it was. So not to meet every other week. Yeah, I know. Well, Dick remembers in the old days, right, Dick? It was Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Saturday. Yeah,
it all depends on the people you have on the board.
yeah,
You have
that's, yeah,
Town
yeah.
manager gets
Yeah.
to where they're on their high horse, and it
Yeah.
takes up a strong board to be
Yeah.
able to,
Well, yeah,
because they're elected by the people to do that,
Yeah.
And
and, the greatest compliment I ever got is you may not agree with him, but you will never doubt where he stands. And that's the best compliment somebody can give you. Is there anything else in section 4 that we want to discuss? Because other than that, I open the floor to any matters of this. Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to do this. I got a text from Phil Desother saying he couldn't make it, but he did have a comment. I just felt it was proper to read it to everybody. Yes, it was an email. Yeah. He said, sorry, I want to send this, but you can forward it to the rest of the group. He said, I am unsure why all full-time and part-time paid roles, not elected roles of the town do not report into the role from a daily management perspective. Excuse me. It would seem appropriate to me that this should be the case so the daily management and direction of all departments could be effectively achieved based on the strategic direction of governing boards. I only read it because it's his opinion. I felt it was proper just to share it with everyone. And he apologized for not making the last minute call out of town, so. I open it up. Anything?
What you're proposing, I would be in favor, but I honestly think I'd rather have a single person, the head of the community. They call it a mayor as opposed to a town manager with a board of selectmen. Honestly, I mean, and then you know what, the other elected officials too, they can cease and all departments would report to this one person. I know that I've heard that we don't have enough citizens at some point. I don't know if it's.
No, not true.
Okay, well, that's what I understand generally. Communities, I'm gonna pull it out of the air, maybe 30,000, 50,000, you have a mayor. But again, it would seem to me that would be the most effective way to have somebody responsible day to day for everything. And
Well,
just want to say that, thank you.
yeah, just a charter review is usually a 7-8 year process. You form the selectmen appoint, and you either appoint or elect a charter commission. The charter commission reviews. Do we need a new charter? If the answer is yes, it goes to Boston. It sits there a while, then it comes back. Then there's a commission organized to look at restructuring a town government. That process requires, I think it's an 18-month process. Then in that finality, it goes to the state for more approval. Then the final end result is it comes back to the town floor to be voted.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I recall when you might have been involved when the town manager was created. So
I wrote it.
I'm aware
Yeah.
of that. So I'm aware of the process. All I'm saying is, again, you know, if I was to support it, I think there should be a central person governing the town.
Well,
As
Yeah.
opposed to, you know, really what I hear from my colleagues in this committee, and I apologize if the Board of Health is watching or any of their relatives or friends, but it sounds like there seems to be real concern about certain, I hope not all, but certain members of the Board of Health, because they always seem to be an example.
I have to interrupt you. I made it very clear that we're talking about all elected boards. If he made that statement, we didn't.
Okay,
That's,
nevertheless, my memory is Board of Health seems to be.
well, it's one of
people-
only two. There's only two of them now.
Okay,
So,
was anybody posted? I know I tried to run for Board of Health once and I didn't get appointed to it. So has anybody?
nobody's
identified
taken
there's
out
been openings?
papers. Nobody's taken out papers
Well,
as of yesterday.
okay, but the Board of Health could have come before the Board of, well, is it because somebody resigned or because somebody, it isn't because somebody passed? Because,
There's an opening and for a 3-year term and nobody has taken out papers for it.
oh.
And right now, to my knowledge, there are only 2 that have turned in papers and all the others are outstanding. So, man,
Maybe
he
even
read
more
off all the
reason-
names.
Maybe even more reason to, you know, not have
Well-
fair selected boards.
Again, yeah, well, that's a lot of the perimeter of what we're doing here. So, anything else? Okay, motion to adjourn? At
Second that motion.
6:47, we're adjourned. You kill that,
Yes, I will.
please? Thank you.